Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Sarah, 5:30 having arrived, we are going to get this meeting started. The first item is to call the roll. So do you want to go through that?
Absolutely. Chairman Taft?
Here.
Alder Young? Alder Mi'kmaq?
Here.
Alder West?
One more time, sir, sorry.
Alder West?
Here.
Great. Alder Tate.
Present.
Your show. Perfect. Okay, fabulous. Everybody here, first item of business is approval of the minutes for the July 13th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Great. Okay, next item is item 422-20, communication sponsored by Alder Young and request by Matthew Sadowski, Interim Executive Director of the Community Development Authority, seeking permission to prepare and execute a loan through Business Lending Partners for up to $100,000 of the City of Racine EPA Brownfield Cleanup Revolving Loan Fund for the purpose of supplementing an EPA Brownfield Cleanup grant of the CDA intended to fund the removal of contaminants from the CDA property at 1425 North Memorial Drive. Recommendation is that this request be approved, subject to terms and conditions listed in CDA Resolution 20-03. Further, that the interim executive director and/or chairman of the CDA, mayor, city clerk, or their designee be authorized to execute loan documents to facilitate the loan. That was the recommendation of the CDA. Staff recommendation is that the request be approved, subject to terms and conditions listed in CDA Resolution 20-13. Fiscal note, the BCRLF loan of up to $100,000 will be made from a grant received from the Environmental Protection Agency. No City of Racine funds will be used to transact this loan. Racine County Economic Development Corporation Business Lending Partners will serve as the loan servicer. Great. Mr. Sadowski, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, and briefly before the Finance Committee looking for a favorable recommendation on this is that we initially went out to bid to conduct this project using, we were anticipating to use an existing grant that we have for brownfield cleanups. The initial bids came in $50,000 over what our budget amount was in the grant. And so what we were looking for is to use the revolving loan fund, the city's brownfield cleanup revolving loan fund, is to close that gap between the funds that we have on hand and the bids that we received. We had about $90,000 in our existing cleanup grant. Bids came in at $140,000, so we had a $50,000 gap. So what we did was we took it out to bid, but we weren't quite sure how these bids would come back. So that's why we were initially asking for $100,000. But the bids that we're getting now are coming in very favorable. Rather than looking at a cost of $140,000 for this project, it's looking to come in around $120,000. And so we're saving a good amount of money there. A lot of it's coming in with the contractor. We're looking to save about $20,000 on just materials removal, and another $2,000 about on actual services for management of the project from an environmental firm. So basically, we're looking for the ability to borrow or use the revolving loan fund to close that gap. The one change to the fiscal note is that we were informed by our environmental consultants that there is a 20% match that the city has to meet for the revolving loan fund. But we do have funds in the Department of City Development's brownfield line item that would cover that.
Okay, so does that change the fiscal note then? That
Yes.
does change the fiscal note?
Yes.
Okay, so the fiscal note, what should the fiscal note read then?
So Matt, assuming you wanted to still read loan up to $100,000?
Just to be safe, yep.
Okay. City Racine match of 20% of loan will be paid from the Department of City Development's brownfield account.
Yeah, it's actually the capital improvement budget. There's a brownfield line item in
Yep.
there.
Okay. Brownfield. Do you have any idea, how much is in that account?
It's 150,000.
It was 150,000.
Okay, so the 20% match would be, if it's 120,
No, it'd be.
Yeah, it'd be about 20,000.
20% match on the 30,000 if we end up at the.
oh, of the 30,000, okay. Of the 30,000 gap, okay. 20% of 30,000, so then it would be up to that number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the bids are in, but if for whatever reason we did go up to the 100,000, yeah, it would be $5,000. No, it's not.
$20,000.
$20,000. There you go.
Okay,
I
so
would
up
say
to
match up to
$20,000.
20.
Okay, okay, although we don't expect it to be that high, that's what it should read, okay.
Chairwoman,
Just making sure.
point of information, would we have to make an amendment to the item in order for it to be reflected in the fiscal note?
I think that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
So a motion would be in order at this time. Would you like to make such a motion?
Yes, I would move to amend item 422-20 to reflect the city match that was outlined by interim executive director Sadowski.
Great.
Point
Do I
of
have a
order,
second? Yes, sir.
we haven't actually made a motion to adopt the item, so there's nothing to amend yet.
Okay, good point. Would you like to make a motion to adopt?
Move to approve.
Second,
Okay. Okay, great. Now, Alder Young, did you have an amendment?
Yes, move to amend as previously illustrated.
Perfect. Okay, sorry, I was going to give people the opportunity to
second,
second. Okay, great. So, is there any further discussion, comment, questions on the motion as amended?
well, my hand is up.
It is. Alder Tate, you're recognized.
Thank you. I guess my question was more about the actual project and cleanup site of it itself. It references the south lot of 1425 Memorial. So is there anything attached? Could you kind of describe just the lot that we're looking to clean up and what that entails and kind of what's there and what sort of processes are required as a part of that?
Excellent.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is the property has been divided for grant purposes into two separate lots. It still is one large parcel.
Right.
For granting purposes with the EPA and DNR, they suggested we divide it up so that, frankly, so we could apply for additional grants for it. And so we did that. I think if I could Mike Lechner describe what the cleanup would be on the site, what materials are going to be cleaned up. It does involve hauling materials away and bringing in clean fill, but Mike, I think, would better describe it.
Okay. Recognized.
What we're going to do is there's a hot spot on the property, and we have to dig that out. The excavation will go to about 6 feet deep. I don't recall exactly the dimensions on it. It is in the south lot. The property is odd shaped as far as the way it's divided. The north lot is a very small lot,
Right.
and the south lot is a major part of it. So we have, we're going to dig that out. We do have clean fill already stocked on the property. That saves us a lot of money for this excavation part of it.
Okay.
One of the things with this is some of the soil has to go to a special dump because of the contamination levels in it, and that's what drove the price on this particular project.
Okay.
Is it petroleum?
Go ahead.
Yes. Go ahead. You can answer that question. Is it petroleum?
There is petroleum on it, yes. There is.
Okay. So this particular financial amendment that we're doing is for the cleanup of the southern portion. Does that mean at some time in the future that we'll be looking to establish some funds specifically for that smaller northern portion of the lot for cleanup, or has that already been done?
We've done partial cleanup on the north lot. The north lot is the most contaminated. So it was thought to divide it this way as well, so that we had another parcel that was in quotes, quickly available, easily cleaned up. But there we'll be doing cleanup work on the north lot as well, but the costs will be higher. Exactly what they are, I don't know, but it is the more contaminated portion of the property.
Okay. That's interesting that it'll end up being higher, even though it's a significantly smaller portion, but that's indicative of how contaminated it is, I guess. So thank you for clarifying that and speaking to that. That concludes my comments, Madam Chair.
All righty, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on this item? Thank you for information. Okay, so seeing no more discussions or comments, we can first vote for the amendment to the item. So all in favor of the amendment to item 422-20 to reflect that 20% city match of up to $20,000, please say, unmute everybody first. Please say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, so then we're going to do the same thing for the amended item then. So all in favor of 422-20 as amended, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, so moving on to the next item.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Item 486-20, communication from Mayor Mason presenting a request on behalf of the City of Racine Sustainability and Conservation Coordinator to amend the solar ground lease agreement approved by the Common Council on May 5th, 2020 under item 243-20 with Wisconsin Electric Power Company, a Wisconsin corporation, doing business as We Energies. The amendment would modify the area used for the City of Racine's participation in We Energies Solar Now program and result in a 60-kilowatt solar system being installed on 3.06 acres at Olson Prairie Park. The staff recommendation to the Finance and Personnel Committee is that the mayor and city clerk are authorized and directed to enter into an amendment to the solar ground lease agreement with Wisconsin Electric Power Company, doing business as We Energies. Fiscal note, this amendment will not affect the revenue anticipated to be received by the City of Racine. I wanted to give the Sustainability Coordinator the opportunity to speak to this. Unmuting now. Coordinator Pratt, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Would you like to
Great.
speak to this item?
Yes, please. So if you'll notice in your attachments, there are two attachments. One is the original agreement and one is the amendment. I would like to draw your attention to Exhibit B, which demonstrates the difference between the original document and the amendment. So you'll notice that in the original, there are 13 rows.
I'm sorry. We do not have that in our attachments. It probably should be there, but we do not have the original amendments to look at, unfortunately, it's not attached in the digital version of the agenda, and I don't
I didn't receive it.
Madam
So-
Chair,
yes.
it was sent out to us earlier today. I have the attachment in a separate email if alders are able to
Okay.
access that.
Okay, let me just check. Who was it from? Oh, here, it was from, okay, great. Okay, it was sent at 4:32, that's why I don't have it. All right.
Yes, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I was like, I should have it, and I know I've seen it before because we talked about it already. So, but I was concerned that not everybody had it. Okay, please continue.
Okay, so if you'll notice in the original agreement, there are 13 rows of solar panels. And the adjustment that's been made is now there are 14 rows of solar panels with a gap down the middle to account for an easement for a wastewater pipe that's owned by Mount Pleasant that was previously unregistered. And so the reason why we are approaching you this evening is because there was unrecorded easement that's owned by Mount Pleasant. And so we had to make some adjustments to the design. And as the chairwoman mentioned, this does not affect the finances of this project and simply affects the number of rows and sort of the orientation of the panels themselves.
Yep, yeah, yeah, I see that in the amendment. Great. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Sustainability Coordinator Pratt? Okay. A motion would be in order.
To approve item 486-20.
Second.
All right. Moved and properly seconded. Do we have any further discussion on this item? Okay. Seeing none? I see a hand. Alder Tate, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Ms. Pratt, if the chair would indulge, to kind of speak to this unregistered or at least unnoticed kind of easement that Mount Pleasant has in this space, and kind of just, how that comes to be and what ultimately that means for, other activity in that area, or what some potential solutions are, beyond just amending this as it is, but for future instances when we're talking about kind of boundary issues with the city and Mount Pleasant.
Is that something you can speak to, Ms.
Yes.
Pratt?
Thank you, Alderman.
Sure.
So the reason that this was noticed by us was because our solar installer, SunVest, saw very late in the process that there was an unmarked line on a map that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to address this in the future, it's important that we as the city of Racine and also our surrounding communities make sure that we register all of these things and keep appropriate documentation. So while I don't believe that this is sort of a long-standing issue or a wider issue, I do think that it remains important to keep our records up to date is kind of the simplest answer to that. So luckily, with speedy communication with Mount Pleasant, we were able to resolve and clarify the sort of mysterious dotted line that appeared on this map and understood exactly what its purpose was so that we could adjust our solar array.
Right,
I hope
thank
that
you.
answers your question.
That's satisfactory to me.
Great. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm gonna, would you prefer I did it one by one?
No.
Okay. All right, just checking. Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Sustainability Coordinator Pratt. Much appreciated. I am going to mute you now. Oh, she's muted. Okay, great.
I don't know who's on to speak to the next item.
Okay, I have to get back to,
Follows what Schultz told me.
okay. So we've identified callers 2, 4, and 5.
Like in advance.
So
No.
I can,
speak to it a little bit if you'd like.
well, we can do that. Should I skip do we expect somebody to come on and we can skip it and I can hold off, or do we want to just do it now without Chief Howell here?
I would say you could just do it now. I can talk through it.
Okay.
Standard grants.
Okay, all right. So the next item then is item 485-20, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of Chief Howell, requesting to appear before the Finance and Personnel Committee to discuss applying for and accepting the 2020 Bureau of Justice Assistance, Edward Byrne Justice Assistant Grant, number 00335, and renew the memorandum of understanding with the Racine County Sheriff's Office. Staff recommendation is to approve the 2020 Bureau of Justice Assistant Edward Byrne Justice Grant and renewal of the MOU with the Racine County Sheriff's Office. Fiscal note, the grant is for $39,452. The Racine Department will receive $19,726. No city match is required.
So I can go ahead and attempt to talk to this. This is a long-standing grant that we've been getting with the Department of Justice for as long as I've been with the city of Racine. A large portion of it goes to the Racine County Sheriff's Office for time and materials, mostly equipment. And then $19,726 will stay with the city of Racine, and we use that primarily for equipment as well. There is no match required under this grant, and again, this just helps improve the equipment at the police department.
Okay, I see a hand. Alder Tate, you're recognized.
Why does the sheriff's department get such a large portion of it? I kind of read into the justice fund, the JAG grant, and it kind of said that counties such as our own, I was kind of going through the list of all the Wisconsin municipalities that received it, and many of the counties themselves had stars next to them, while the municipalities had their portion allotted, and our portion was obviously this 39,000. But it mentioned that the counties themselves broadly didn't meet the criteria independently for certain statistics to get these funds, but they had to sign the agreement because they're in the same area as the municipality that does. So I'm curious as to, if they didn't qualify independently for these funds and the city's receiving them, why are they getting such a large portion of these funds? Especially when we have our own police department and don't necessarily need the county to be operating within city boundaries.
Definitely a good question, Alder. I don't have the greatest answer in the world. We have had a memorandum of understanding with the county for a long time, as you see that this says it's going to renew that memorandum of understanding. So really the only answer that I would have, unfortunately, is that would be a question for the police department or the chief in particular. I don't know the specifics of that agreement.
Okay.
Do you know if this is time sensitive?
Well,
I wouldn't say it's particularly time sensitive. We could certainly defer it until we got an answer.
Yeah, and according to the Justice Department, we've already got the funds are already allotted to the city. It's just this is our process of accepting them. But I do think, perhaps we should be reviewing that memorandum of understanding because it wasn't attached in our items. We got the email that it was attached to the clerk that was attached to our agenda, but the actual memorandum was not attached. So I think it would be appropriate for us to review that and kind of determine what is our understanding with the county, and is it still valid in terms of kind of what's been existing and what we actually want to continue to do.
Could that MOU be made available to the Finance and Personnel Committee?
Sure.
Okay.
You can ask the chief to do that.
Okay. We will
So I
ask the
move-
chief to send that. Okay.
I was just gonna say I move to defer to the next meeting.
Okay, do I have a second? Hold on
Second.
1 second, sorry, I have to mute everybody. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion to defer item 485-20. And do we have any further discussion? I see Alder Tate, your hand is still up.
Oh, no, that's from later.
Okay. Do you have is there any further discussion on the item or questions?
Well, I would hope that the next time that we do bring this up, the chief also could be here and kind of speak to specifically what sort of equipment we're purchasing with this particular grant, because the various uses that are available for it are pretty broad, and there's a lot of things that perhaps many people in their minds are thinking like we should probably be allotting funds towards these things, and this very broad grant does fund a lot of things that people are looking at in terms of reallocating or redirecting resources to kind of be preventative as opposed to responsive. So I would like to kind of find out more about what equipment we're buying and or maintaining, what that looks like, whether it's purchasing new equipment, and then what does that mean for our future expenditures and maintenance that ultimately goes to operational costs, and whether we're considering that, because if we can get some nice several $20,000 worth of stuff, cool, but then how much does it cost us in the long run that's not necessarily accounted for in our operational costs, where we don't have that ongoing grant to kind of buy more stuff but also maintain the old stuff. So I just want to make sure we're having a full conversation about what we're buying, how we're maintaining it, and whether what we're buying is the best use of the resources that we have, considering the broad utility of this particular grant. So.
Okay. Is there any other comments or questions? Okay, I see no other hands, so we are going to vote on the motion on the floor to defer item 485-20. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next item is item 478-20, communication sponsored by Alder Lemke on behalf of the Public Health Administrator, requesting the permission for the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract agreement with Maxim Healthcare Services to establish temporary employment for contact tracers, disease investigators, and monitors. Staff recommendation is that permission be granted to the mayor and city clerk to enter into the contract with Maxim Healthcare Services to establish this temporary employment for contact tracers, disease investigators, and monitors. Fiscal note is not applicable. Is there anybody who wants to speak to this item?
Your attendees, it would be number 2. Call number 2 is Bobby Fergus.
Okay. Who is now unmuted. Would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, I would. Thank you and good evening. So this is a company that I've been researching for a while. Many other health departments have been using Maxim Health Services for limited term employment, such as Waukesha, Wauwatosa, Franklin, Greenfield. I've had conversation with multiple health officers throughout the state in regards to using this contracted services, and they have had very positive feedback for the company. I've had multiple conversations with Maxim. What I like about them and what we found that was very interesting and important for the city is that this company will maintain, they will make sure that they are all, the credentials, they are all registered nurses that will be doing the disease investigation, contact tracing, and monitoring. They'll make sure that they are insured, and then they're limited term employees as well. So we only have the grant, and the contract would only be through the end of the year.
Okay. Excellent.
Yes, any questions?
Do I have any questions from the committee members? Alder Tate.
So you referenced it. So I heard a grant was referenced. Just curious, kind of what grant was being mentioned actually.
We will be discussing, it's the contact tracing grant that's on page 4.
Okay.
So we'll be discussing that tonight as well.
So we're kind of doing this backwards then. That's the should approve the grant and then approve the, All right, just making sure. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Okay, that makes sense. So do I have a motion?
Approve.
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is also sponsored by Alder Lemke. So I'm sorry, I've done this before. Okay, item 480-20, communication sponsored by Alder Lemke on behalf of the Public Health Administrator, requesting the mayor and city clerk enter into a contract agreement and accept funding in the amount of $62,397 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services, Division of Public Health for COVID-19. The funds will be used for public health crisis emergency response and for the continuation of emergency preparedness efforts for the city of Racine. Staff recommendation is that the mayor and city clerk enter into a contract agreement and accept funding in the amount of $62,397 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services, Division of Public Health for COVID-19. Fiscal note, no city match is required.
That'll be Bobby as well.
Okay. Would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, please. So
Okay.
on this grant, these funds will be used for public health crisis emergency response for the continuation of emergency preparedness efforts with COVID. This was additional monies that were received from the state to help assist with that. We will be utilizing this to also help support the temporary employees, filling some of those gaps. We've had vacant positions open, and this is the money that will help us fill those gaps.
Great. Do we have a motion? I'm sorry, let me just unmute everybody again. Do we have a motion on this item?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion or questions on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Great. Next item is item 481-20, communication sponsored by Alder Lemke on behalf of the Public Health Administrator, requesting permission for the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract agreement and to accept funding in the total amount of $870,860 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services, Division of Public Health for the following programs. Okay. ELC COVID-19 epidemiology and laboratory capacity, $24,200. The funds will be used to rapidly establish and monitor key activities related to COVID-19 in the areas of epidemiology, laboratory, and informatics. The contract period is February 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. Is that a typo or?
I think that's a typo.
Okay, COVID-19 test coordinator, $127,800. The funds will be used to support staffing and resources to convene partners and coordinate or support local testing efforts to quickly identify new cases of disease, investigate, and contain outbreaks. COVID-19 plan, $30,000. The funds will be used to update and support local public health preparedness pandemic plans for COVID-19 to match Wisconsin's statewide box it in strategy, consisting of testing, isolation, quarantine, and contact. COVID-19 contact tracing, $688,860. The funds will be used to conduct disease investigations and contact tracing for a wide variety of communicable diseases. The contract period is March 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. The staff recommendation is that the staff recommendation is that permission be granted to the mayor and city clerk to enter into contract agreement and to accept funding in the total amount of $870,860 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services, Division of Public Health for the programs listed above. Fiscal note, no city match is required, and I imagine you'd like to speak to this item as well.
Sure. All right. So as you can see in this amount of money, there are multiple grants within this amount. So as far as the ELC COVID-19, the $24,200, that will help us support conducting surveillance to detect the transmission that may occur through the community, and we will be working with Ascension on that so that we can increase testing capability throughout the community.
Okay.
Any questions on that particular grant before I move on?
Alder Tate, I see your hand up.
This would be more a comprehensive question, so I think we can go through all the grants and then discuss.
Okay. Moving on for the testing coordination, that grant will be included in the contact tracers, disease investigators, and the monitors that will be hired by Maxim Healthcare, as well as, I'm going to skip, and I apologize if that's not acceptable, but for the $688,860, those two funds will go to help support possibly the 10 registered nurses that will help us with kind of our COVID unit so that we can start to move employees back to other services within the health department and begin to reopen as the pandemic continues. And then the $30,000 for the COVID plan, that will be used to update and support our pandemic plan. We will make sure that it is COVID ready and that we are ready to be able to move forward with any mass clinics that will be needed in the future.
Okay, so thank you. And I will take the question first from Alder Tate.
Sure. I guess my first question would be, with all these expenditures, kind of how many positions do we think we're filling in test coordinator as well as contract tracing?
So as far as the positions, I'm currently looking at 10 registered nurses, as well as one lead nurse who will kind of oversee those 10 individuals. That will look like they will all be COVID related. They will be notifying the positive cases and then notifying those contacts of the positives, and then making sure and calling every patient daily to make sure that they are doing well until they're out of isolation or quarantine. As far as the testing coordinator, like I said, we will be partnering with Ascension to make sure that we can help Ascension meet our, we'd like to increase the testing capacity within the city. So hopefully with more conversation with Ascension, we can get them to offer more testing at our Wisconsin location, the Wisconsin Avenue location.
Okay.
That's what all those funds will be used for.
Okay. Is there anything in the grants that kind of specify the level of education, if you would, to be able to do contact tracing, that, that sets that it's got to be a registered nurse as opposed to someone who may have a lower level of medical training being able to do that work?
There are specifications to it. A registered nurse was preferred. It can be, it doesn't have to be a bachelor prepared nurse. It can be a 2-year graduate. We're just requesting a registered nurse. There wasn't anything saying that we could.
Okay, because I mean, immediately thinking about, our local education programs in Gateway, and they're not necessarily producing registered nurses, but they're producing a lot of students who are ready to go into working in medical practitioner, but, don't necessarily have the bachelor's level. So I don't want to preclude them from.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
I just want to make sure that, however we're kind of posting or designing these positions doesn't necessarily automatically preclude maybe a good portion of the folks who are kind of seeking education and receiving and where they've achieved so far.
Correct. No, and I understand that. And so Gateway nurses would qualify for these positions. And Maximum Healthcare is trying to hire local residents versus outsource to other communities. They're trying to keep it local for us.
Okay, thank you.
So no problem. So Gateway would definitely, that would be applicable to these positions.
Okay, great. Good to know. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Interim Director Fisher.
I just wanted to ask one question or maybe a clarification just to be clear for those maybe listening on Facebook. Bobby, the intention is for these positions to be temporary positions through the City of Racine, but they will actually not be City of Racine employees, correct? Can you explain that?
Correct. That is correct.
So they would be employees of Maximum Healthcare and then hired as temp employees here for the City of Racine, just to be clear on that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The next person who has a hand up is Alder Miekema. Alder Miekema, please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions. So just seeking clarification on these positions first. So the test coordinator is a specific position that is getting filled, and is that somebody that is getting filled from Ascension, or is that a new position that's being created?
No, the local testing coordinator, it's not actually, I wish they wouldn't have named it that. It supports the work of the local testing in the community. It's not one position. So okay. We will be able to work with the different stakeholders within the city to assure that testing is occurring in our community.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That makes much more sense. I appreciate that clarification.
No, thank you for asking that question for clarification.
Yeah. So and again, there's just a lot of COVID-19 stuff going on right now. So what role, and I apologize if I missed it, is there a role, or what role is the city health department playing in this, or is this separate from their operations?
As far as the role for the city health department, we are currently doing all of the disease investigation, contact tracing, and monitoring We are not doing testing at this time, and then we are preparing for mass vaccination clinics when a vaccine is available.
Okay, so I see part of this is a COVID-19 plan, which will be update local public health preparedness. So I know obviously we've been putting out preparedness actions from the city under the recommendations of the health department. Are those preparedness pandemic plans going to differ from what the Racine Health Department is putting out, or are they going to supplement? How are those pieces interacting?
No, this is an additional plan that it's our public health emergency plan. So it's a lot of what the health department is doing internally now, and then it adds those additional pieces to our mass clinic vaccines and how we would run that, working with other local partners in the community. So it's in addition to what we're currently doing. Okay,
and then last question, I apologize. So I know last week there was also an announcement about some very new testing that's happening around COVID-19 in our community. Is this connected to that? Is this a piece of that, or was that another separate COVID-19 thing that's happening?
Alder Mika, what testing are you referring to?
I think he's referring to the unveiling of the partnership with the Cornell Medical College and the Medical Colleges of Wisconsin regarding the testing we're doing with the first responders right now.
Okay. Unfortunately, we are not able to use the grant money for research.
Okay.
So this is not included. So we have been working with Ascension and partnering with them to try to increase their testing capability, primarily at that Wisconsin Avenue location. So helping them with, hopefully some of this grant money will help them also provide staff to be able to be available to our community to do testing.
Wonderful. Thank you for those clarifications. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Mika. Are there any, okay, I see a hand up from Alder West. Alder West, you are recognized.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I got a quick question. I want to know what are we doing to reduce the time from getting the test to receiving your test results? We had a situation, my son tested positive on the 6th, and he didn't receive his test results until the 21st. And I thought that was kind of ridiculous. So I just want to know, since we have all these funds and grants and stuff, what are we doing to improve that part of it?
Okay.
Thanks.
Ms. Fergus?
Yes. So we have been working with the labs. Unfortunately, that is, our labs have been receiving so much testing that there has been kind of a backlog, and they are trying to work around the clock to make sure that we can get rid of that backlog. Today, we had minimal backlog, so we are back on track to get those tests out within 3 to 5 days. It depends on what facility their test would go to be ran. So we have multiple partners that we have Wisconsin State Lab of Hygiene that's running testing along with Milwaukee Health Department. We also have Quest. We have Exact Sciences. So all of those have different turnaround times. So it depends on where the testing is done and how many places are providing testing to those labs. So unfortunately, I can't give you, as far as from a health department perspective with these grants, I can't say that that will help assist with this.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there any, did we do a motion? Yes? No, I don't think so. I think a motion would be in order at this time. I'm unmuting folks. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or any other questions on this item? Okay. Thank you. So all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Great. Okay. Next item, communication by Alder Lemke on behalf of Public Health Administrator, requesting permission for the mayor and city, did I say the item number 282, sorry. Requesting permission for the mayor and city clerk to enter into a grant agreement and accept funding from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources in the amount of $28,000. The funds will be used to monitor Wisconsin DNR designated public beaches in southeastern Wisconsin, Racine, Kenosha, and Milwaukee counties in accordance with Federal Beach Act requirements. Staff recommendation is that permission be granted to the mayor and city clerk to enter into a grant agreement and accept funding from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources in the amount of $28,000. No city match is required. Julie.
Caller number 5.
Yep, okay, so Dr. Kinzelman, let me see if I can get you here. Dr. Kinzelman, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, thank you. This is a reoccurring contract that we've had for several years. It is federal pass-through dollars that are allocated through Wisconsin DNR that provide for our regulatory beach monitoring in the summer, including North Beach, Zoo Beach, and Sam Myers in City of Racine. It pays for summer interns that conduct the sampling as well as the necessary laboratory supplies to carry out this work. And we provide this service for the whole of Southeast Wisconsin from Bayview through Kenosha. The other municipalities are at no cost to us because the grant also pays for the intern's time and any necessary supplies to carry out the work comprehensively.
Okay, great. Do we have any, Alder West, is your hand still up from last time, or do you have a new question? Okay. Okay, just checking.
Lower, I don't know, did I do it right?
It's up now.
Oh, okay, lower.
There you go. It's gone. All right. Okay, so do I have a motion would be in order at this time?
To approve.
Second.
Okay, motion probably seconded. Is there any questions? Are there any questions about this item? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting motion, item 482-20, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kinzelman. Okay.
We'll be back to Bobby.
Okay, yep, all right. I'm gonna mute everybody again. Okay. Except for Trevor, apparently. All right, great, thanks. Okay. Next item is item 484-20, communications, sponsored by Alder Lemke.
483-20.
Oh, okay, I'm looking at either the wrong, oh, no, I skipped one, just kidding. Okay, backing it up. Item 483-20, I will do a meeting without one of these times. Sponsored by Alder Lemke on behalf of the Public Health Administrator, requesting permission for the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract agreement and accept funding in the amount of $21,000 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services, Division of Public Health for HIV prevention. The funds will be used for HIV prevention and integrated surveillance programs. Staff recommendation is that permission be granted to the mayor and city clerk to enter into the contract agreement and accept funding in the amount of $21,000 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services, Division of Public Health. Fiscal note, no city match is required, and we are back to Ms. Burgess, and I'm going to unmute you now.
Thank you. So this is a long-standing grant that we've had with the health department and the state for over 20 years. This is just another year. We will be providing HIV partner services with people living with HIV as well as their partners, helping them notify partners as well as receive the referrals that they need for health care. We'll monitor them throughout their process until they get established with a physician locally. Does anybody have any questions?
Let's see, a motion would be in order at this time first, so do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay, and do I have any questions or comments? Yeah, there's a second. I forget who the second was though. Who second?
Trevor, Alder Young was the
Okay.
second.
Alder Young was the second. Okay, great. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Now, we are going to move on to item 484-20. Communication by Alder Lemke on behalf of the Public Health Administrator requesting for the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract agreement and accept funding in the amount of $8,800 from the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services, Division of Public Health for bioterrorism preparedness. The funds will be used to build and strengthen Wisconsin's ability to respond effectively to public health threats and for the continuation of emergency preparedness efforts for the city of Racine. Staff recommendation is that authorization be granted and no city match is required. So, Ms. Fergus, would you like to speak to this item?
Sure. The $8,800 is money that was intended for staff to go to state and national conferences for the 2020 year. Due to the pandemic, this money is now able to be put towards any COVID-related activities that the health department does, and we will be utilizing again to support our temporary staff.
Okay. Do I have an, let's see, a motion would be in order at this time?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Do I have any questions or discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next item. Item 491-20. Is that the end of the items for the public health?
Yes, she should be done.
Okay.
Yes,
All
it
right.
is.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, next item, item 491-20, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the city clerk requesting to waive formal bidding and enter into agreement with Kane Communications for community outreach and election official training revolving around the August and November election. Staff recommendation is to approve, waive formal bidding, and enter the agreement with Kane Communications for outreach revolving around the upcoming elections. Fiscal note, funds are available from the Center for Tech and Civic Life Safe Elections grant.
Tara will be on.
Okay, and we have city clerk, Tara Coolidge available for, would you like to speak to this item?
Sure, I would. Sorry for changing it over from health things to election things on you for the next few items. The first one that we have, the first one that we have is to sole source with Kane Communications. Essentially, we're doing this mainly because of time frame. We're running a little bit short. I'd really like the communication firm to work with us a little bit in August before rolling into a presidential. Also, because Kane Communication, the owner is actually local, and I'm hoping that she understands our community a little bit better than someone from outside.
Okay. So at this time, a motion would be in order. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Do we have a second? Okay, I guess we'll ask questions before the motion. That's fine.
Alder did the motion.
I seconded.
Oh, Alderman seconded? Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay, great. Chair recognizes Alder Tate with a question.
Thank you. I understand the timeliness. Is that necessarily justification for waiving formal bids? Because I do know that, particularly in this situation, because I do know in general when we waive formal bids, it's because either they have a proprietary product that we're committed to, or we've previously, engaged them for a very, the same service. Now, I know we worked with Kane around COVID stuff, but obviously this is a different substance, which is elections. So I'm curious and wondering, just to make sure that we're cautious that, are we able to waive formal bidding for this? Does this qualify under kind of what the scenario where we are able to waive formal bidding?
Well, I probably would defer to Interim Fisher for the whether or not we're able to legally. I will say that when we did use them for COVID, we were kind of asking for the same thing around targeted demographics within the city to reach out to them in English and in Spanish to work with them for outreach. That's kind of the same thing we're going to be wanting here. A lot of the communications we're going to be creating with them to make sure the right information's getting out. However, targeting the demographics that we're looking for to essentially increase voter outreach and voter turnout is something they did work a little bit with in that field. However, as to the legal stuff, I'm definitely going to turn it over to Kathleen.
All right.
Thank you, Tara. I appreciate that. So under the purchasing ordinance as it sits right now, there's really no definition as to how we can or cannot sole source. You're absolutely right that in general, it goes to whether we have used the vendor before, whether they have proprietary information. In this case, obviously, as Tara said, we have used Kane before, and in this case, there is most certainly a timeliness issue. So in some cases as well, we will bring it forward for a timeliness issue. I can't think of a specific example off the top of my head. I apologize for that. But in this case, both Tara and I discussed it as well as Monica discussed it. Monica is purchasing agent. She actually worked back and forth with Kane, you know, to trim up the proposal as best we can. So we did have purchasing involved. We just didn't go through a full RFP process because of timeliness.
Okay. Do we have any representatives from Kane on with us today?
I don't believe so. We can check under attendees, but I do not believe so.
Okay. Because my next question kind of related back to what the city clerk had mentioned as far as they're hitting certain demographics and, you know, being able to do in Spanish and et cetera. And I, you know, if part of our justification for wanting to sole source is because they've kind of done this work similarly with the city, I think this would be like the appropriate time to kind of assess whether that work was as effective as we needed it to be for the initial round. I do know, you know, as we continue to talk about COVID and try and get community outreach, there were still segments of the city that were, you know, not receiving messages or weren't being messaged to well. And without kind of having the contractor on to kind of talk about that, you know, particularly, you know, reaching, you know, African Americans in the city of Racine for COVID information, there seemed to be a dearth of ability to be able to do that. And now we're talking about voting. Again, these are, you know, low propensity populations. You know, are we confident that Kane has the track record at this point to, or at least the resources to tap into to subcontract to make sure that they're talking to, you know, the community effectively, you know, all aspects of it. And that's a bit of my concern. You know, I think they're very capable. There's a fantastic website still operating very well. But then on the flip side, we had that ongoing conversation of it seems like we're still having a difficulty reaching this particular segment. And, you know, without them being here, I can't really ask, so what are you going to do differently? Or, you know, what have you learned from that first round to make sure that we're reaching every segment of our population that needs to get this information, whether it's voting or public health? So I don't know who can really speak to that, but those are my primary concerns.
Okay, City Clerk, would you like to respond?
Sure. I mean, certainly I understand the concern, and I agree that a lot of the grant money was used specifically that we want to start reaching out to other people in the community that we haven't been able to tap into. So while I understand the concern, and I'm happy you said something, because that's something I can keep a closer eye if the committee wishes. Or, I mean, we could go out to formal bid. However, we wouldn't be looking at anyone doing anything, certainly for the August election. So I leave that at the hands of committee either way as to what you would decide.
I mean, if we do move this to council, can we try and make sure that, you know, Kane is available to answer questions for a council meeting?
Sure. I mean, I can also ask for an update from Kane Communications and email out to the Finance and Personnel Committee with an update if you'd like.
Sure. And maybe invite them to common council.
Yep. I think it's a good idea. Thank you, sir. Chair is recognizing question or comment from Alder Young.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I have a question regarding process, looking at the fiscal note. So if you look at future items that are on our agenda, you know, it will list an expenditure seed. and that is missing from this item. And I'm wondering why and if that should be remedied because it is not on the agenda.
Tara, do you want to speak to that?
Sure, I would be happy to. And I apologize. At the time we were putting the communication in for timeliness, we were still speaking with Kane Communications. The amount can certainly be updated as to not to exceed $120,000. However, I didn't want to put that in before we had come to sort of Monica was working with Kane, and I didn't want to publish it on an agenda until they had worked that out.
That makes total sense, and I would just like that to be reflected on the agenda once we pass the item. So there's not a motion right now, correct?
I believe there is a motion and a second. So would you like to amend the item, sir?
Yes, I would move to amend this item to illustrate that it will not exceed $120,000.
All right, go to second on the amendment. Let me unmute some folks.
I think just as a point of order, we don't necessarily have to amend to adjust the fiscal note. I mean, we're not taking action on the fiscal. We're taking action on a recommendation. So there's necessarily a need for an amendment to add additional information to the item.
So we can if we want to.
We could, but I'm just saying we don't have to go through that process just to add a fiscal note.
Okay.
I would imagine that would be a part of the agreement, and so I think it would be best practice to include it in the agenda.
Oh, I do as well. I'm just saying we don't have to amend it to have it on the agenda.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Nerds. Cool. All right. Let's vote on this item with the understanding, if not an amendment, to reflect the item will not exceed $120,000. Before we vote, is there any further discussion or comment? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion as updated, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Fantastic, motion carries. Next item, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the city clerk requesting to waive formal bidding and purchase 40 Badger books from Paragon Development Systems Incorporated. Did I skip it again? Man, I skipped another one. Okay, backing up. Item 492-20, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the city clerk requesting to waive formal bidding, sole source, and enter into an agreement with Burlington RV to purchase a mobile voting precinct. Staff recommendation is to approve the waiving of formal bidding, sole source, and enter an agreement with Burlington RV to purchase a mobile voting precinct. Fiscal note, funds are available from the Center for Tech and Civic Life Safe Elections grant in an amount not to exceed $250,000. City Clerk, would you like to speak to this motion?
Sure. This is another one that while it takes a few months to build an RV, our hope is to figure out who we would like to build it and purchase it from, in hopes that they will also possibly be able to rent us one if they can't get one in for the November election. So this particular item, I've been working with the purchasing agent. We did reach out to another company whose quote was much, much higher than this one. Burlington RV was suggested to us by the police department and the fire department, who currently use them for their command vehicles. After speaking with them and having a Zoom call, they said that they could do it within our price range, and we're currently looking into timeframes at this point in time.
Great. A motion would be in order at this time.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on this item? Alder Tate.
It's just if the clerk would indulge and give us a quick reminder of how much we got out of that Tech and Civic Life Safe Elections grant.
Sure, I believe it was $942,000. Don't quote me on the last couple numbers,
Okay.
but yes.
That was looking at the cost of the RV, and I was like, if we're getting an RV out of this, like that must have been a healthy grant. So yes, it was. Excellent. Good work again. Good work.
Thank you.
All right, great. So we have a motion. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of item 492-20, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item 492-21, 494-20, communications sponsored by the chair on behalf of the city clerk requesting to waive formal bidding and purchase 40 Badger books from Paragon Development Systems Incorporated. Staff recommendation is to approve waiving formal bidding and purchase of 40 Badger books from Paragon Development Systems. Funds are available from the Center for Tech and Civic Life Safe Elections Grant in an amount not to exceed $80,000. I see a hand up. Alder Tate.
I was gonna wait for the clerk to introduce the item first.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good call. City Clerk, would you like to speak to the item?
Sure. So Paragon Development Systems is actually the only company that does Badger books. They are contracted out through the State of Wisconsin Election Commission, and they're the only ones that actually create our electronic poll books and run the program. This originally was going to be requested in the 2021 budget, I believe under capital, although Kathleen can correct me if I'm wrong. So essentially this would complete our purchase of Badger books, and we would have full city implemented by November.
Thus removing it from the capital budget.
Correct. So this is a really good example, if I could interject, this is a really good example where a private grant has actually saved us capital money in the future. So we should all be very proud of Vicki and Tara for getting this grant because it just saved us $80,000 of capital money.
Excellent. All right. Chair recognizes Alder Tate.
That was actually gonna be my question. I was like, does anybody else make Badger books? Because like that seems like a pretty proprietary name for something. So this totally makes sense for the use of these funds. But also, thank you, Administrator Fisher, for pointing out that we saved $80,000 in our capital budget with this grant, and you can't kind of beat that. So good work, everyone.
A motion will be in order.
Move to approve.
Second.
I win.
All right. Moved and properly seconded. Are there any further questions or discussion on this item? Seeing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item is communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of the city clerk, item 445-20. Requesting to apply, receive, and accept the Wisconsin Election Commission CARES subgrant to be used for August and November 2020 election cycle, grant control number 00332. Staff recommendation is to approve and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to apply and accept the Wisconsin Election Commission CARES subgrant to be used for August-November 2020 elections. Fiscal note, the amount to be determined by the Wisconsin Election Commission equal to $200 plus $1.10 per registered voter in the city of Racine as of June 1st, 2020. No city match is required. I see that the city administrator has that calculator? I thought you were calculating.
No, I was calculating, but
okay.
Tara can speak to this one.
Okay. City Clerk Coolidge, would you like to speak to this item?
Sure. So this is actually from the Election Commission. They received a large chunk of CARES money, and they were directed to go ahead and subgrant it out to certain municipalities. The way they created a fair estimate was to do it by registered voter for each municipality in the state. However, we do have to sign a contract and get it back to them essentially to apply and accept for the CARES cycle grant. At this point in time, we're working towards different uses. I was kind of holding this money as to see where we would come up with shortfalls for November, if any. So essentially, this would just go straight back into the election fund to be used for election-related items.
Okay. Motion would be in order at this time.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved and properly seconded. Do I have any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Fantastic. Next item. Item number 150-20, communication sponsored by Alder Levy, Alder Tate II, Alder Jones, and Alder Young, requesting to reduce the interest rate residents would pay for city loan on assessed projects. So we have, Administrator Fisher, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
So this has been in the queue for some time, and I appreciate everybody's patience on this topic as we worked through ransomware and everything else. I've had some time to look at it, and most certainly, you know, we feel for all of the residents and the constraints that the residents are under right now. So we took a look at if we could reduce the interest rate, what that would look like. I went through various different scenarios, and what I have come up with as a recommendation, and I did not put it on the document just yet because I did want to get, you know, your input on it. But basically what I did is I took the city's blended rate of what it costs us to borrow money, and basically what that came up with is about a 4.5% rate, is about as low as we could go based on our current borrowing rate. So we do have a blended rate on borrowing. I took the very last borrowing that the city of Racine did, and it's about 4% with 0.5% for administration. So about 4.5% is about as comfortable as I would be. We would, taking that interest rate down, we bring in about $140,000 a year in interest from special assessments. This would reduce that interest from coming in by about $35,000 a year-ish. But at this point, that would be my recommendation. The city attorney has included a draft ordinance because this does require an ordinance change. So I think the very first attachment is the proposed new ordinance. And it does go through how that percentage is calculated and that we need to come back every 5 years to have that reevaluated. Are there any questions?
All right, before we get to questions, I'm just gonna say a motion is in order at this time.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, I believe I saw Alder Young's hand up first, so I'm gonna go with Alder Young first. Alder Young.
Well, I have first a comment and then a question. I think that this is an important action that this committee is taking because anywhere where we can find relief for our constituents, something that we should be focusing on. I know, you know, at District 9 has one of the most alleys I can say that the chair also has many alleys and the 3rd district has many alleys. So this is something that's close to our constituents' concerns. So I'm excited to see us taking this on so that we can see some savings. And I also appreciate the calculation that that is a part of this ordinance change so that we're revisiting this every 4 years, or every 5 years, just to see if we can get a better deal or to thank you, interim administrator, for that effort.
Such a mouth.
All right, Chair, next we'll recognize Alder Tate.
I don't want to be a nitpicker, but we did, we were asked to make a motion, but we moved to approve a general communication. So we probably should go back and actually make a motion to adopt a specific ordinance because that's not in the recommendation at this time. But what my real comments were, you know, we introduced this a while ago before COVID ever hit. So we were already thinking about kind of the financial constraints of you know, our constituents and, you know, their need to have like either roads repaved or sidewalks redone at the time, at least, and alleys repaved, and the burden that comes with, you know, the relief that already exists in the loan program. Like, you know, when people find that out, they're like, oh, well, this makes it a lot more palatable. When they know they can pay it over 10 years for, you know, chunks at a time. That in and of itself was a big difference. But certainly knowing that, you know, we could have reduced that based on the percentages, you know, is a value, and that's something that we need to take action on. But even more so with our economy being in the condition that it is, with the city still needing to operate and maintain its roads and alleys and other public right of way, and also knowing that folks, you know, ability to pay or ability, you know, funds may be constrained for the foreseeable future. You know, it's that much more important that we look to find that relief, as Alder Young said, in any capacity that we can. You know, particularly when it comes to infrastructure. So, first thing, I'd like to perhaps defer to the chair and say, do you want to reopen for a motion that reflects what we're actually doing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the motion should be approve the ordinance as written. should be the
Right.
motion.
Okay.
So I would make a motion to adopt the ordinance as attached and written, which would ultimately change the interest rate associated with accessible projects to 4.5% as opposed to the current 6%.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Excellent work. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Well,
Is there any further discussion?
well, point of order, I would have had to withdraw the incorrect motion, but let's just say.
Using the powers of my chair, I strike the incorrect motion, and we are now acting solely on the motion just introduced by Alder Tate and seconded, I believe, by who?
Marcus.
Okay.
Should have gave it to Alder Young, but sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's all good. Okay. Do we have any further discussion? Questions? No, this is important. Okay, great. So, seeing none, all in favor of adopting the ordinance as written, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Great. Next item. Communication, item 4-89-20, communication sponsored by the chair on behalf of Assistant Finance Director, now interim City Administrator Fisher, submitting the presentation of fourth quarter 2019 and the first quarter 2020 fiscal results and the March 2020 investment schedule. Staff recommendation to the Finance and Personnel Committee is to receive and file. Take it away.
All right. So attached to the Legistar item, you'll have 3 separate documents. So I'm going to try to talk through them. I'm going to try to go slow because they are 3 kind of long documents. So under our investment policy that we have, that the City of Racine has, we are required to quarterly present the fiscal results for the City of Racine to the Finance Committee. We are also required to report the investment schedule, so our schedule of city investments, to the Finance Committee. This item has been in the queue for a little bit, again, because there were so many other things on the agenda, I've kind of held it. You'll be seeing the second quarter results coming up here pretty quickly because June is pretty well closed. The very first document I believe you have attached is the March investment schedule 2020. The highlights for this schedule, obviously the City of Racine has lots of different investments, but one of the more important things relating to this schedule is right up on the top, there's a percentage of 1.651. That's the city's blended interest rate of what we earn on our cash in all of our investments. That is actually relatively high for a government, so we do a good job of investing our cash as much as we can. We invest as a city, we try to invest as long-term as we can, depending on how much cash flow we have on hand. So the first set of investments is long-term investments, 5 years or longer. Those don't earn as good of interest rates anymore, so they're not as available. And then you'll see a big old nasty long list of CDs. So city has many, many, many CDs that they invest in different banks throughout the country. We actually have an investment advisor that does this for us. We obviously approve any transaction. But you'll see those dollar amounts of about $245,000 that relates to FDIC insurance at each one of those banks throughout the country. And then we have the majority of our actual available cash on hand that we invest at the state investment pool. Right now, the interest rate at the investment pool is pretty good. It's over 1%. That is very liquid cash. So if we need money to pay for payroll, that's where we pull it from. And then we have a high balance savings account at Chase Bank, which is our main bank. And again, that is one that we pull from just for cash flow purposes. So that is our investment schedule. Does anyone have questions on the investment schedule?
Alder Tate, I see your hand up. Is it still up or?
I mean, it was going to go up either way, but yeah. So, yeah, you mentioned that we have an advisor who kind of does a number of things. When and how does the Common Council kind of participate in determining, which banks we're kind of investing in? Because you know, the one thing that comes to mind right now is last year, you know, we kind of divested out of Wells Fargo because of their activities in the mortgage crisis, and particularly just the number of fraud that they were engaged in. And as I'm looking through this, as I do see that we have some savings in some Wells Fargo banks, so I'm curious as to when are we provided the opportunity to say, like, we want to divest from this entity and not work with them before or any further.
So within the investment policy, actually the Finance and Personnel Committee does approve the banks, and I can't remember the last time that came. It was sometime last year that it actually came relating to the Wells Fargo. These CDs, if they are within the portfolio, there may be a couple Wells Fargo in here through the portfolio, and I can certainly reach out to our investment advisor and say go ahead and liquidate those. We had an actual standing bank account with Wells Fargo, an actual cash account, and that we closed as part of that action. So
okay.
I will certainly reach out for that.
I will look forward to that meeting for this committee this year then. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions on our investment portfolio statement as presented? Okay, I think we can move on to the next.
Okay, so I think the next one is December.
Yeah, I'm looking December 2019, yes.
Okay, so the next report is the budget results for the year ending 12/31/2019. The committee will also get a report from the auditors of our final financial statements for 2019. So I'm going to still consider this unaudited. The audit will be finished within the next couple of days, so you should see that coming relatively soon to you. But overall, a couple of things for 2019. I'm going to scroll you to that second page, and all the way down at the bottom where it says grand total general fund, you'll see over at the side it says 99.52%. That means that we were under budget for expenditures by about 0.5%, which is always good. We like being under budget. It's better if we're more under budget, but but really the only thing that related to that were open positions within a couple of departments. City Development hadn't opened, Health Department hadn't opened during the year. So we were pretty tight on with our budget for expenditures. Now, if you go to the next page, total expenditures, let me back up by saying total expenditures for 2019, $81,781,000 in the general fund. And then the next page goes into the revenue side of the equation. This is normally where the city struggles a little bit. And there's a couple of areas. You'll see that we were only at about 97% of our revenues. That should be closer to 100%. It'd be even better if it was 102. But you'll see one of the areas, fines and forfeitures, that specific line right there, you'll see that it was significantly under budget. That relates to some parking fines and municipal fines that we just did not collect in 2019. The budget for 2020 was reduced for those areas because we had such poor results in the prior year. It is always a little bit hard to tell whether we're going to get a lot of parking fines or a lot of municipal fines. I can tell you for 2020, that's going to look equally as bad, mostly because of COVID. Overall, the general fund, which is our largest operating fund, used about $1.5 million of reserves or fund balance. We budgeted to use 2.4. So we actually did better than what we thought we were going to do, which is good, by about $900,000. So that $900,000 would then go back into reserves and actually was reappropriated to be used in the 2020 budget. Okay?
Okay, I see. Is it time for questions? Okay, Alder Tate, do you have a question?
Yeah, I guess mine is more of a, I don't want to say philosophical, but theoretical. I mean, it seems I don't want to say we're moving in a direction of, but certainly we don't want to be dependent upon kind of fines and forfeitures as a part of our revenues. What stops us from kind of budgeting, quote, zero in fines and fees as far as revenues? And like we take what we get what we get, as a part of it, but instead of necessarily trying to project X amount and then also ultimately putting us at a deficit because we don't collect that, or possibly perversely incentivizing, to get more fines because we're trying to make that number. Is there anything or any reason as to why is there any particular benefit or deficit as to not budgeting for fines and forfeitures?
Well, I will say this, that always the auditors, they prefer us to be as realistic as possible when it comes to our budget. Anytime that there are significant swings, so for example, if we would budget 0 and we would bring in $1.2 million, they would question our budgeting practices because that's unrealistic budgeting. Having said that, I will give you an example of where I'm very conservative when we budget: interest income. So interest income fluctuates dramatically from year to year. If it's a bad market year, we could actually have net losses. So I am very careful when we do interest income. So every year when we go through budget, I always am very strict with the departments to say, be realistic, be conservative on the revenue side of the equation, because this does us no favors to have a loss on the revenue side of the equation. So you're absolutely right, Alder Tate. I think that we could. I don't know that I would recommend doing 0, but I think that we could be more conservative in the fines and forfeitures area. And we'll certainly look at that for 21.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions on the budget overview results for December 2019?
The next couple of pages is healthcare. I do want to cover that a little bit for 19.
Great.
So the next couple pages, or the next page, goes through the healthcare fund, which is our second largest fund in the city of Racine, and we talked about it quite a bit during the budget last year. We'll talk about it again because it's a big number. But basically our expenses, we budgeted about $21.9 million in expenses. We had expenses of about $21.6 million, so we were very close on the expense side of the equation, but still under, which is always a good thing. Health claims were actually over budget, but prescription claims were under, which is great. On the revenue side of the equation in the healthcare fund, the majority is just interdepartmental charges, but then we also have employee contributions and retiree contributions. Overall in the healthcare fund, we used about $660,000 of reserves rather than $1.7 million. So again, positive results in the healthcare fund, which is great. And that all fell into fund balance and reserves in the healthcare fund, and then was immediately reappropriated in the 2020 budget. So that is the healthcare fund. Again, just as a note, if you all recall, when we did the budget process for 2020, we changed to a high deductible health plan. The intention was to keep those expenses about that $21 million rather than having it go up to about $23 or $24 million. So that was the reasoning for that change to the high deductible health plan.
Okay, any questions on December 2019's budget overview statement? Okay, and then we move
to March. Sorry, everybody. So March 2020, the report looks relatively similar to what you just saw for 2019. And I'm going to buzz through this one a little bit, only because June is going to look substantially different than this, and it's going to give you a lot more information. But overall, through March of 2020, we actually were in pretty good shape. We should have been at about 25% of expenditures. We were about 21% of expenditures, so we were about 4% under, which is a lot. So we were in pretty good shape. That's not going to be the case when we look at it in June. On the revenue side of the equation, also for March, it always looks really weird on the revenue side of the equation early in the year because we don't get our state aids until November. So everything looks a little wacky. But again, I will tell you going forward that licenses and permits and fines and forfeitures are really going to be where we're really, really not doing well in 2020, and that is going to be 100% because of COVID. So those areas of parking fines, we just don't have the revenue coming in, and you'll see that really clearly in June. COVID really hadn't had much of an impact for that first quarter, but you'll see it more in the second quarter. Overall, based on the March results, it's very hard to tell where 2020 is going to end up. If I looked at it in March, I'd say we were having a pretty good year. I would say for 2020 right now, we'll talk about it a little bit more when I bring it back in June.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments on this?
And then healthcare too, I do want to talk about healthcare.
Oh, okay, let's talk about healthcare, yeah.
So healthcare for March of 2020, this is actually kind of interesting, and healthcare is really, really wacky because of COVID. We have this weird combination of we went to a high deductible plan and COVID happened. But the first quarter of the year, we were actually pretty high, which is not what I expected, but we had some very high claimants right at the start of the year. And even with that high deductible plan, they hit over high deductible and still had substantial costs. I think overall for healthcare though, I will say I think we will do better than anticipated in 2020 because of both high deductible as well as COVID. We're seeing the claims creep up a little bit now because people are starting to go back to the doctor and have their procedures done. But during that period of April, May, even early June, the claims were very, very low.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions, comments? Okay. So this is communication. Correct motion at this time would be to receive and file. Do I have a motion?
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Motion properly seconded. Any further discussion, questions, comments? All in favor of receiving and filing the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Which means, I believe, that we have exhausted our agenda for this evening and we are adjourned. Boom. I have a gavel. I didn't use it yet. Let's inaugurate the gavel. I'm going to gavel. All right. Meeting is adjourned. Yay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
You want to turn off?
Thank you.